Hi everyone, my name is Annie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation and how to get into it. Now, I'm going to be honest, I started watching Star Trek with the original series and I really didn't want to give The Next Generation a shot. I thought it could never be as good as the original, it doesn't have my favorite characters, I don't know any of these new people in the show. And I didn't want to watch it until I watched some of these episodes that I'm going to recommend to you, one of them in particular. So I'm going to tell you about 5 episodes in The Next Generation that you can watch to get into the show if you've only seen the original series or if you've never watched Star Trek in general. As I said in my Star Trek The Original Series video, Star Trek is episodic for the most part, and you can jump in and watch any episode at any time. So I'm going to recommend to you 5 episodes in The Next Generation that you could start watching if you've never seen a show and just want to get into it, or if you've only seen the original series and you're not sure if you would like to watch another Star Trek show. I would highly recommend these 5 episodes. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first episode that I want to recommend is in Season 2, Episode 9, and that is The Measure of a Man. Now, this is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes of all time. It is quintessential Star Trek in that there is almost no action, there's a lot of talking, but it is so well written, and it presents a really big problem. Because in The Next Generation, one of the crew members, Mr. Data, is an android. And this episode is all about defining what to do when you have such a different life form, and is it even a life form? And it debates a lot of these core issues that are very central to science fiction today even, which are machines supposed to have rights? Is Data a machine? Is an android a machine, or is it more of a human? So I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I usually show this episode to people who are like, oh, I don't want to watch Star Trek, it's all gonna be the same thing. And then this episode is so smart and so well written that it really takes a hold of you. And the 2 main characters in this episode are Mr. Data and Picard, which also happen to be 2 of my favorite characters in the show. And I think they carry this episode brilliantly, and not only that, but it also lets you know what type of man Captain Picard is and how he'll fight for his crew. And you get to see Commander Data, and I absolutely love Data. He's amazing. He's such a good character. And you really connect with these characters through this episode, so I think it's a great episode to start with. For number 2 in my list, we're gonna jump to Season 5, which is, I think it's my favorite season of Next Generation, and this episode is episode 2 of Season 5, and it's called Darmok. I think a lot of Trek fans will know about this episode. It is also very quintessential Trek in that it's about communication, and I think communication is very central to Star Trek. It's about learning how to speak, really, to someone who's so different from you that you don't even know how their language works. So in Star Trek, they have this device called the Universal Translator, and it translates any alien language that you hear after listening to it for some time. For example, if you play an alien language for 5 minutes or maybe less than that, it will figure out what the language is and will automatically translate for you. But the crew comes across this species that the Universal Translator doesn't work. There's something about their language that it just doesn't match up with how our culture expresses language. And so Captain Picard, due to some circumstances, have to figure it out for himself, and communication becomes a central aspect of this episode. And I think it's a wonderful study on what to do when someone's so different from you that you can't even communicate in a way that makes sense, and how to understand someone's culture. And language is so central to culture, and it shows so much of what a culture is by the way that you express yourself. And I think this episode shows that beautifully, and I absolutely love it. It also has Captain Picard as the main character. A lot of the episodes on this list have Captain Picard as the central character, but I just love Captain Picard. I think he's the best character in Star Trek. I'm sorry to all the other captains, I love you all so much, but Captain Picard has to be my favorite captain. He's just such a good captain, and he's so intelligent, and he deals with situations in a brilliant way, and I think this episode shows that. Okay, so for episodes 3 and 4, I'm gonna do a double one because this is a two-parter episode and it might be the most famous episode from The Next Generation, and it's called The Best of Both Worlds. Now, if there's one thing that people can remember from The Next Generation, it might be the Borg. And the Borg are such an iconic Star Trek villain, and this two-parter episode is really when you get the threat that are the Borg. You understand how horribly dangerous and scary they are. So for people who don't know, the Borg are a collective species, and they assimilate people from other species into their hive mind. So you are stripped of your identity and you're connected to this hive mind, and you all think as one, and you function as drones for the collective. It is a very scary thought to have all your identity and individuality stripped from you, but then you are also made a drone for this thing that you don't know. It doesn't have very good intentions towards Earth. It wants to assimilate humans and their technology and their knowledge. So the Borg are, I think, are probably the scariest villain in Star Trek, and I do mean scary. I think just the concept of the Borg is a very scary concept. In this two-parter episode, you get to see them at their full power until Voyager, that is, but that's another show for another video. If you like a bit more action in your episodes, and maybe Darmok and Measure of a Man are too talkative for you, these episodes, while they have, of course, that really Trek thing of let's sit down and talk about the problem and figure out how to solve it, they are action-packed. There's lots of space battles, and you get to see a lot of Captain Picard, but you also get to see lots of Commander Riker and all of the other characters on the Enterprise. And it's a great two-parter, it's a great cliffhanger, and you go in between season 3 and 4. Yeah, if you like a more action-packed, for Star Trek, it is action-packed episode, I would highly recommend The Best of Both Worlds. I think it's really one that hooks you into The Next Generation. And finally, number 5, we come to the episode that for me was the one episode that drew me into The Next Generation. I remember not wanting to watch it, thinking, I'm not gonna like it. I like Kirk, I like Spock, I like McCoy, just let me have the original series. And then one night I was like, you know what, let's just watch this episode, it's on, might as well watch it. And the episode that was on that night happened to be what became my favorite Star Trek episode of all time, and that is The Inner Light. And this is season 5, episode 25. I really have no words to describe this episode. I think it's one of the best pieces of sci-fi ever put on screen. I don't want to talk too much about the premise because I think the best way to enjoy this episode is like what I did and come in completely blind, expecting a normal episode and being put into the most amazing story. But I will say that it has, again, Captain Picard is the main character, and I think this is one of the episodes with The Best of Both Worlds that most defines Captain Picard as a character. And it's just a beautiful story, and it's beautifully written, it's told in a beautiful way, and I'm gonna keep saying beautiful because I don't know any other way to describe this episode. I think it's a masterclass in science fiction and in human stories. It tells the story of a life, really, and it has one of the most beautiful pieces of music in Star Trek, and I cry every time I listen to that song. So this was the episode that made me say, okay, I'm gonna watch this entire show. And now Next Generation is my favorite TV show of all time. Yeah, if you only have one episode, if you're like, oh, I'm not gonna watch these 5 episodes on this list, I'm just gonna watch one, I would say watch The Inner Light. This is the one that got me, and I think will really have an effect on you if you watch it. So there you have it. These are the 5 episodes of Next Generation that I would recommend for someone who just wants to get into the show, who's seen the original series but's never seen this one, who's never seen any Trek at all. I think these are episodes that stand alone as amazing pieces of science fiction, very well written episodes, and they really let you know who the characters are. In particular, I think this list focuses a lot on Captain Picard, but as the captain, he really carries the show, and Sir Patrick Stewart is amazing in this role. I can't picture Captain Picard as anyone else, and I think these episodes are really, for me, they're some of my favorite episodes in The Next Generation. They're all in my top 10 list. Yes, I do have a top 10 list written somewhere. But yeah, I do hope you give these a watch and that you enjoy them. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please consider giving a like and subscribing to my channel. And let me know in the comments, what are your favorite Star Trek The Next Generation episodes? There are so many, it was really hard to just pick 5, and yeah, this is an amazing show, and I do hope you watch it. So thank you so much for watching.